welcome to an all-new episode of the Robert Palace Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me, ladies and gentlemen, and on deck for this week's episode. We're going to talk everything NFL Week 5. You'll get all my thoughts on the matchups and stuff to look out for and just news going on around the league. We're going to get into the penultimate episode of Peacemaker Season 2. Just finished that up not that long ago, so you'll get my fresh thoughts on that. And then we're going to talk about a little bit of stock watch on upcoming superstars that are right now evolving on NXT and on the television show Evolve, which airs on Tubi for free on Wednesdays. I'm going to talk about a couple of wrestlers who I think have a very, very bright upside future in this business. So you'll get my thoughts on that. And checked out one battle after another this past week, but I won't be covering it on this show. You'll be able to hear my thoughts on that movie on the Game Time at the Movies podcast with Abraham Trevino. That'll be up in just a bit, along with this new episode. So if you want to hear my movie thoughts for this week, go on and tune in there. We also talk NFL, but I will be doing that on this show as well. But as always, we do kick things off here with the box office results. So let's talk about the weekend of September 26th through the 28th, which was led by, at the number one spot, one battle after another, bringing in $22 million for Warner Brothers. That is their, I believe, 8th straight number one movie. The first one to not break $40 million, but that's okay because one battle after another is going to be a big awards contender, I believe, for Oscar season. So this movie is going to be in the conversation for a long time to come. And hopefully this movie does have some good legs because it does have, it's got a good rating with the critics and the audience. So let's see if people turn up throughout the weeks in word of mouth. There's been incredible marketing from everybody, including Leonardo DiCaprio, who's doing all the circuits, the podcasts, the TikToks. So he's all over the place. So hopefully that pays off in the long run. But either way, another win here for Warner Brothers Pictures. They're just having an epic year at the box office. At number 2, Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. Now, I saw the trailer for this during Bad Guys 2, and I was talking with my daughter. I was like, I think they're making a Labubu movie, and I have no idea about the trends of Labubu or what it is. And once she saw the trailer and I sent her a pic, she's like, that's not Labubu, that's just like some Netflix show or something like that. So, sorry, I don't know if it's a Netflix show or Nickelodeon, one of the two. Either way, that took the number 2 spot, bringing in $13.6 million for Universal Pictures. And coming in at number 3 is Demon Slayer, the movie Infinity Castle, bringing in another $7.1 million, dipping 59% for a total domestically of $118 million for Sony. But this movie has done incredible numbers overseas, bringing in almost $500 million on its own internationally for a worldwide total of $607 million for Demon Slayer. That is insane. All right, let's get back to the countdown here. At number 4, The Conjuring Last Rites, bringing in another $6.7 million, dipping 45%. I think this movie's still going to hang around as we launch October here in Halloween season, bringing in a total of $161 million. This is already the highest grossing film in the franchise. $280 million internationally for a worldwide total of $444 million. Will it reach the $500 million mark as we head towards Halloween? Possibly, so we'll keep an eye out on that. And then at number 5, The Strangers Chapter 2 making its debut, $5.8 million for Lionsgate. And Lionsgate has had a rough year at the box office. And The Strangers, I remember I went to see the original with my daughter, or not the original, but the first part of this movie. It was alright, and it also did just so-so numbers at the box office. So this looks to be heading in the same direction. Now, does it have a stay because Halloween's in season and it's just another, slasher of the week to go check out? Possibly, but I wouldn't expect this to gross more than $30 million total. So, yeah. That's the box office. That's the top 5 for this week. Coming up this weekend, we got The Smashing Machine with Dwayne Johnson. It's the first solo directorial effort from Benny Safdie, also starring Emily Blunt. Looking forward to that. I'm probably going to check that out on a discount Tuesday, and I'll probably review it on Game Time at the Movies. So it may not be on this show, but it all depends on scheduling. So There will be a review for that regardless. And the Taylor Swift Life of a Showgirl release party movies coming out. Not sure exactly what it is. It's been a little under wraps. I don't think it's going to be like the first movie she put out, which was actually a concert movie of the Eras tour. So this is more just to coincide with the Life of a Showgirl album, which is already out on streaming platforms. I'll probably be taking a listen to that myself to see just to see how it is. I do enjoy her music, but yeah. So I'm expecting that to be number one this weekend. So if it weren't for that, I'd probably go Smashing Machine. But it's got tough competition. Those Swifties are gonna turn out in droves for that, and it's also a limited engagement, so it's only going to be out for a couple of days. I don't think this is going to have the extended run that the Eras tour did. So it's just going to be fully loaded and super front loaded for everyone to go check that out. Interesting to see how one battle after another does in week 2. I really hope the word of mouth goes good for this, because I really do think it's one of the best movies of the year. And like I said, it's going to be around come Oscar season, so it's not going to go away regardless. But it is going to need word of mouth to make a profit, because this had a $150 million price tag on it, so it wasn't cheap for Paul Thomas Anderson to make this film. But I think Warner's has got a good hit on their hands critically for this, and as far as like awards worthy type of film. So. But they've had such a stellar year with Sinners and F1 and Weapons, so I really don't think that the box office ultimately is going to matter for this movie, just because they've had just an incredible amount of success this year. I would say it would probably be in a lot more trouble if they didn't have all these gigantic hits earlier this year. So, but yeah, go check it out, folks. If you have an IMAX screen near you, wherever you live, go check it out. I recommend it on the biggest screen possible. Like I said, it's massive in scope, so it's not just on a bigger screen, but it feels big when you're watching it. So there's only 4 theaters that are carrying the VistaVision format of this movie, which I would love to see, but I'm not sure exactly. I know there's one in LA, and I'm not sure where the other 3 theaters are for this, but 70 millimeter I know is in Dallas, and LA, New York probably. So if you can see it in that format, go check it out for sure, because this is one that you want to see in that format. A little bit long, almost at 3 hours, but the movie is so entertaining, and it just rolls with the punches, and it goes by pretty quickly. So I didn't mind the length of it. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk Peacemaker, penultimate episode of season 2, and we'll get into NFL Week 5. This is the Robert Palace Podcast. We'll be right back.
Does Mark Kerr still have it in him?
I just need you to let me in.
I'm sacrificing everything.
It's the biggest fight of my life.
Let's go.
Smashing Machine, rated R. Get tickets now.
All right, welcome back to the show. The Smashing Machine, starring Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt, hitting theaters this Friday. Again, I will be checking that out on a Discount Tuesday, and either reviewing it here, depending on schedules, or if not, it'll definitely be on the Game Time at the Movies podcast with Abraham Trevino. Another new episode of that is coming up as soon as this one goes up. You can pair that up. It's a good 1-2 combo of a podcast punch. Really having a fun time doing that show with Abe. It's always fun to talk pop culture and sports with your friends. But of course, let's get back to the meat of this episode. Let's talk about Peacemaker Season 2, the penultimate episode. I just wrapped it up a few minutes ago. We're barreling towards the season finale next week, and everything's starting to really ramp up, and it's been a fun journey as we head into this new journey in the DC universe, headed up by James Gunn, who's been a very vocal authority in this show. He's written most of the episodes. He's directed a couple. I think he's directing the finale this upcoming week, next Thursday. He wrote this week's episode, and again, as we found out on last week's episode, the dimension that Christopher Smith has entered and wants to make a life in, where he thinks everything's all well and good, turns out that the big problem in this universe is that it is actually Nazi America. So that is the biggest red flag that you could ask for in a show. So all of Chris's friends, including Hardcore and Adebayo and Economos and freaking Vigilante, Adrian, they've all made their way into this dimension to rescue Chris, so they're dealing with the aftermath of everybody finding out that Adebayo is the only black person in this world, so they're all trying to kill her. She goes into hiding with help of Judo Master, who is becoming a little bit of a fan favorite, and he's maybe turning the corner to become part of the crew and a good guy in a way, but he's still got that edge to him, and everybody's got that comedic tone, so there's just him interacting with Adebayo in this episode, and then Chris and Harcourt just evading all the authorities and trying to escape, and there's the Robert Patrick character who plays Chris's father, and I forgot what the actor's name is, who plays Keith, Chris's brother, are all finding out that the real Christopher Smith is not from their world, is gone, and the one who's occupying their world is a doppelganger. So they're trying to get everybody rounded up together, find out what's going on, and there's just a lot of twists and turns and pretty violent episode, so be prepared for that if you're watching, keeping up. If you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it all the way, but this is a very... stuff is getting pretty serious, and there was actually some deep stuff here with John Cena's character of Christopher Smith, just really, really owning up to the violence that's going on in this world and just how much of a toll it's taking on the people that he loves. And he has a pretty big breakdown here, so a lot of growth for the character of Christopher Smith. It's been nice to see, again, good television shows in their second season usually take the time to develop their characters more, and Peacemaker is in the conversation for shows that are good at doing this. So anyway, a lot of stuff happens in that Nazi dimension. They end up escaping. Everybody's back intact. They come head to head with Argus and Rick Flag Sr. and Sacha Bardo, and the giving away of the dimensional portal. And now Christopher Smith has been arrested. And yeah, we'll see what happens on next week's finale. I'm looking forward to it. This is supposed to really set the stage for Man of Tomorrow, the sequel to Superman. So we'll see how the show ends up finishing off. It does say season finale when I saw the preview for it, so it's not a series ending. So, I mean, we haven't heard anything about this show being renewed, but given the way James Gunn's got a pretty big sandbox to play with here in this universe, I'm pretty sure this Peacemaker show is going to continue in some form. Or maybe they'll get their own movie, who knows. But either way, the finale will be next week. If you've been tuning in, I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. It's very funny, pretty violent. It's as an R-rated of a show as you're going to get. So if you have little ones, probably don't let them watch it. I wouldn't for sure. Even my girls who are just becoming teenagers, I don't know if I would show them this just yet, even though they do watch horror movies and slashers. So I don't know, maybe they can handle it, but there is some stuff in there where it's like, I don't know if I want them watching that. But that's Peacemaker Season 2, the penultimate episode. I'm super pumped. And then, yeah, just a lot of TV shows are going to get back into the swing of things. Landman's coming in November. In the middle of Tulsa King. We just wrapped the second episode. So that's fun, seeing Stallone and the gang again. It's just, it's like Sopranos, but more ragtag and just wacky. And Stallone being Stallone, he's like the New York style Italian mob boss, but then the crew he's got around him are just very ragtag and wacky, so it gives it that comedic tone. So it's not as serious, even though there is serious stuff going on in the show, but it's a lot of fun, and it's one of the best things that Taylor Sheridan has put out there as part of his big universe. But yeah, a lot of TV shows in the coming months. Landman, I'm going to try to get into Mayor of Kingstown with Jeremy Renner. Everybody tells me that one's really good, so I'll hop into that. Tracker is going to be coming back soon on CBS. Me and my dad watch Shifting Gears with Tim Allen. We like our old school comedic sitcoms, so it's nice to have that as just a fun hang and watch. Yeah, so let's get into NFL. Week 5, coming off of Week 4, my Buccaneers suffered their first loss of the season to the defending champ, the Philadelphia Eagles. They're a little bit injured on the O-line and on the receiver front, so they weren't at full strength, but I'm not going to use that as an excuse because it's next man up in this league. But I came out of that loss just, very positive. They were able to hold the Eagles to barely any offense in the second half, so the defense came through. So, and I think I made this declaration on the Game Time at the Movies podcast that I think it's going to be, I'm pretty sure it's going to be an NFC team that's going to end up winning the Super Bowl this year, because I believe they're the ones that have the stronger defenses. You look at Minnesota and Detroit and Philly. Even Philly's defense was incredible against the Bucs in Week 4. Cooper DeJean is just a superstar. And then, of course, I loop in teams like the Buccaneers. I think their defense is top-notch as well. I'm recording this on a Thursday night, so I also wrapped up the Thursday game for Week 5, which was the San Francisco 49ers facing off with the Los Angeles Rams at home. Obviously, I won't pick this game, but I'll talk a little bit about it. I was really impressed. The Niners coming up with the win. Mac Jones back in the lineup as Brock Purdy's still dealing with this toe injury. But Mac Jones is a little bit injured himself with a PCL sprain. But he gutted it out, and man, was he playing awesome today. I really loved his performance, making really good throws. I think he threw for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. And just kept this offense in groove, man. I was really impressed with this Niners team. You know, they're really banged up. That's the one team that's just, like, cursed with injuries all the time, like big injuries to their players. Like, you know, Kittle's not playing, Pearsall. They lost Bosa for the year. But they when you have a competent QB who can run the system, who can run the playbook, and Mac Jones is, I mean, you know, when he came into the league, let's not forget, he started off with the Patriots, got drafted by them in the first round. He had Josh McDaniels. He got picked to the Pro Bowl, and he took that team to the playoffs 1 year after Tom Brady exited. So he's not a scrub, and I think the system failed him with, you know, Belichick and because he lost Josh McDaniels after that, and it was just a tough go around on who was getting control of that offense. And Belichick, you know, is not in the NFL anymore, but maybe he lost his edge. I don't know. But I think the system failed Mac Jones more than Jones himself failing. You know, did he make mistakes? Sure. But, you know, a lot of it is having the right coordinators, the right coaching staff. He was at Jacksonville before he made his way over to the Niners, and, you know, he didn't really get a chance there because Trevor Lawrence is the starter, and, you know, he doesn't really get banged up. So comes here to San Francisco working under Kyle Shanahan, and he looks great, man. We got a little bit of a QB controversy, I think. I know Brock Purdy's the starter. He got the big contract. But, man, Mac Jones is 3-0 under center. So that is not something to sniff at. And if you want to play it slow with bringing Brock Purdy back to full strength, you can go ahead and do that, because this was a pretty good team that they played today. The Rams are like a playoff caliber team. They got a playoff caliber defense, and Mac Jones was slicing and dicing and running this offense like if he was a 15-year veteran. You know, he was making Brady-like throws, anticipating, throwing where the receiver could only catch the ball. I mean, it was incredible. I was super impressed. So that's tonight's Thursday Amazon game. So obviously that's not going to be part of my prediction coverage. So yeah, good job 49ers. Good job, Mac Jones. All right, let's head into Sunday. Let's start with my teams. Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling to face the Seattle Seahawks. This will be a late afternoon start on CBS. Both of these teams 3-1. Seattle, we all know, is a tough place to play. Buccaneers, like I said, injury prone right now. The O-line still getting worked back. I know Tristan Wirfs is in there, so that's a huge help to Baker's blind side. You know, Chris Godwin made his return as well, but he's got to get back in rhythm. These players have got to make plays in Mike Evans' absence, which loomed large in that Eagles loss. So, you know, but these players got to make plays. There was drops from Egbuka, Godwin himself, but, you know, we got to get these guys making plays and helping Baker out. Sterling Shepard, we got to get the tight ends in the mix with Kate Otten. This Seahawks defense is pretty good. Darnold's facilitating this offense, you know, to a pretty good degree. So I see this as a pretty even matchup, but I got to look at the strength of the quarterbacks and who's probably got the better offensive game plan. I know McDonald's more defense on the Seahawks side, so I expect that part of the ball to be good. Buccaneers probably have an edge on both because Bowles can help out with the defense. I think they'll be able to have Darnold make a mistake or two And then Baker with this offense. The only thing questionable right now is Bucky Irving. I'm not sure if he's going to play. I'm still waiting on. I've been looking on Twitter and stuff like that, and they were waiting on like some MRIs. He probably will miss a couple games, but not too bad. But if he's not in this game, so we're going to have to see some good running from Rachaad White, who's been doing pretty decent ever since. He used to be the starter, and Bucky was the backup, but now the roles have kind of reversed. But Rachaad White has been running some pretty good routes in this game plan. So I think the Bucs could pull it out here. I think Baker can facilitate the offense better. I know they've mentioned about getting slow starts, and they want to get this ball rolling. So I can see them, going into this game. If they win the coin toss, they're not going to defer. I think they're going to take it. They want to score. They want to get up early. They don't want to put their team in a hole. And the defense has also got to come out strong from the get-go. So, but I'm going to pick the Bucs. Seattle's favored by 3.5, and I'm assuming that has to do a lot with the injuries. Bucky Irving possibly not playing, so that does factor. So I don't disagree with this line, but I'm going to go with the Bucs with a good road victory here. They're 2-0 on the road right now, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm picking the Bucs. Next up, it's my New England Patriots traveling to face the Buffalo Bills. Rivalry game. They're going to be wearing those cool jerseys. I mentioned the Patriots. Their colors for that jersey look pretty cool, kind of like North Carolina, kind of like light blue, navy blue. I actually want to buy one of those jerseys, so hopefully they're still available. And then the Bills they're all white, but they also look pretty awesome. This is going to be out of the Sunday Night Football game. The Pats 2-2. Coming off a really convincing victory over the Carolina Panthers. I won't brag about it too much because that's a game that they should win and should, dominate against a team like that. Carolina, kind of hit and miss. I know they were coming off of beating Atlanta and, shutting them out, but, it's kind of like a little bit of fool's gold. They're probably one of the bottom 5 teams in the NFL. So, Patriots dropped 40 on them. Good. I'm not going to brag about it. Bills are 4-0. A little bit of questionable on the defensive side of the ball. That's the only thing that concerns me about this Super Bowl contending team. The Saints gave them a little bit of a run for a while, and then the week before, Miami gave it to them pretty good. So I think Drake May and this offense can put up points on this defense. I really think it's going to be high scoring, but at the end of the day, the Bills are at home. They'll probably get a couple more calls their way. That's just how it goes. And then Josh Allen will pull out some Superman play. It'll be like a 3rd and 12, and it'll be a crucial stop that the Patriots got to make, and they won't be able to do it. And Josh Allen will get that first down, and they'll finish off that drive with a touchdown, and they'll seal the victory. But if the Patriots can hang, then I know this team is on the right trajectory, and then possibly they can get the win back at home later on in the season because, of course, they are in the same division, the AFC East. But I am picking the Bills this week at home. Buffalo favored by 7.5. Now, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, I would probably take the under here on the 7.5. That is too big of a spread. I think this game is going to be a lot closer, and Vegas... it's going to fool a lot of people here because that Bills defense, man, they are ripe for the picking. But the thing is, they got Josh Allen to bail them out. So if anything, I would probably bring this down to like a 4. That would be a more reasonable line. I think it's going to be closer than what you think. Again, rivalries and division, those matter, People thought that the Rams were just going to run away on the Niners, and look what happened tonight. Just don't underestimate in division rivalry games. All right, next up, we got the Minnesota Vikings traveling to face the Cleveland Browns. Actually, this is the London game, Sunday morning. I will not be up for this. The Browns are making a change at quarterback with Dylan Gabriel, benching Joe Flacco. So Shador stock watch on the rise, even though he got himself into some trouble this week, kind of like mocking and, asking about the quarterback change and not really answering. So just, obviously always drama with that kid. And he hasn't even taken a snap in this league. The Vikings still without J.J. McCarthy. Carson Wentz will be at the helm. I think this is a bad spot for a rookie quarterback to go in against a ferocious defense like Brian Flores' Vikings defense. And because of that, I will take the Vikings to win this game. Minnesota favored by 3.5. This is definitely a game to not get up for. So I'll find out about it once I wake up at around 10 or 11, which it'll be close to finishing. Next up, we got the Houston Texans traveling to face the Baltimore Ravens. Both of these teams super beat up. The Texans' O-line is just atrocious. There was that video on Twitter I saw of the Houston O-line colliding with each other on the snap of the ball. It's the funniest thing. And man, I feel bad for CJ Stroud, but I feel worse for the Baltimore Ravens, who are going to be without Lamar Jackson, who got injured in the game against the Chiefs this past week with a hamstring. Don't know how serious that injury is. I don't think it's season ending, as John Harbaugh said in his press conference earlier this week. I expect Stroud to have a good game against this Ravens defense, which is just one of the worst in the league. I'd put them up there with probably the Dallas Cowboys and the Bengals in terms of like you're going to be able to score on this team. Both teams 1-3, so they're a little desperate. Houston favored by 2.5, so yeah, definitely Lamar's not playing in this game, so that line should tell you everything. So I'm going with the Texans. Next up, we got the New York Giants with Jackson Dart coming off a victory, their first victory of the season, traveling to face the 0-4 New Orleans Saints. Saints are actually favored here by 1.5, but and I know the Saints gave Buffalo a little bit of a hard time at the beginning, but I think this Giants defense will play a little better. Giants took a massive loss with Malik Neighbors last week. He's out for the season. That's not good for Jackson Dart. That's probably why they're giving the Saints the edge here, but I'm going to go with vibes here in terms of the Giants and Jackson Dart. And, Brian Daboll was smiling from ear to ear. That's the most I've seen him smile since he's been in New York. That victory last week probably saved his job because he's probably on the hot seat a little bit. But Jackson Dart coming in, making that change, changing the, sometimes a change like that could change the morale of the team and they can play up a little bit more, even though, they lost Malik Neighbors, but still they could probably play hard. I'm going to go with the Giants here. I don't trust the Saints, and they haven't won a game yet. I know they'll win a game at some point, but it's also the NFC South where my Tampa Bay Buccaneers play. So any loss for an NFC South team that's not the Bucs, I'll always be in favor of. Next up, we got the Denver Broncos traveling to face the Philadelphia Eagles. Broncos 2-2, coming off a victory Monday night against the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals defense is atrocious, so I wouldn't put too much stock in what Bo Nix did on Monday, throwing for 300 yards and all that, but that defense is just terrible. The Philadelphia Eagles 4-0. You can say what you want about their offense, but they're getting the W's in the end. And in this league, W's are all that matter because it's all about winning your division and then getting possibly the top spot in the conference and getting a bye for the playoffs. Eagles at home, they're favored by 3.5. Again, I haven't been too impressed with this Broncos offense. Their defense is good, so they might give Philly some trouble, but I expect a good Saquon Barkley game here this go around. So I'm going to pick the Eagles, and they will stay undefeated, and they'll move to 5-0. Next up, it's the Dallas Cowboys coming off a tie to the Green Bay Packers. Who cares? Everyone's like, oh, it was a classic game. How fun. But it was a tie at the end, so who really gives a shit? It's about W's and losses. And if it were me, I would prefer the loss over a tie. Because a tie, it's like eating a 5-star course meal and then having diarrhea at the end of it. Like, was it worth it? No. Jets. Justin Fields, I expect him to have if you have him in fantasy, folks, you should start him because this Cowboys defense is ripe for the picking. That you can score a lot of points on them. Green Bay put up 40 on them. So yeah, expect a good game from Justin Fields. I think the Cowboys will put up good numbers here as well. Dak's playing pretty decent, and the Jets defense has been kind of a letdown this season. Dallas favored by 2.5. But I'm going to pick the Jets. I think the Cowboys might be coming off a bit of a high on that Green Bay game. They may be seeing that as more of a win, and then they'll go back to how they played the week prior when they got beaten down by Caleb and the Chicago Bears. So look for a big Justin Fields game here. Check it out, folks. All right, next up, we got the Las Vegas Raiders traveling to face the Indianapolis Colts. Both teams coming off losses. The Colts came off a good loss to the Rams, so they were pretty competitive in that. So the Colts early on in the season looked to be just early this season. Again, we're barely hitting October, so we'll see. But right now they look pretty legit. They've got players on their squad, and they are atop of the AFC South right now. So it's looking good for them. They're at home. They're one dumb mistake away from winning that game against the Rams, and I'm sure they're kicking themselves. Daniel Jones playing good ball. The Raiders, I'm just not high on them as much anymore. Geno Smith has been a turnover machine. Pete Carroll might be a little bit over the hill as far as like coaching goes. I mean, he's the oldest coach in the league. That's going to catch up to you at some point. Indianapolis favored by 6.5. That goes to show you what Vegas thinks of this Raiders team. In their own damn city. I'm going to go with the Colts here on this one. Next up, we got the Miami Dolphins traveling to face the Carolina Panthers. Both teams 1-3. Dolphins getting their first win of the season on Monday night. They did lose Tyreek Hill for the season, but I still think they got good enough firepower on their side of the ball to put up points on this Panthers team, who I just don't believe in. Again, both of these teams are actually bottom 5, bottom 10 in the league, but if I had to pick a winner, it's going to be Miami. Miami favored by 1.5. Next up, we got the Tennessee Titans traveling to face the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are up and down every week. This will be a week that they're up with Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison. They're coming off a confidence-building game for Marvin Harrison Jr. The Titans, Cam Ward's calling out the team, saying that they're ass, as the kids would say today. This is the one team where I would put on the real big hot seat Brian Callahan, and he'll probably be the first one to go if I had to make a bet. Arizona favored by 7.5. Yeah, Arizona should win this handily. Next up, we got the Washington Commanders traveling to face the Los Angeles Chargers. Jaden Daniels coming back from injury, so he should have a pretty good game here. Commanders at 2-2. Chargers suffering their first loss of the season to the Giants, but there's an asterisk on that because, or not an asterisk, but there's context to it. The Chargers are very decimated at O-line, and O-line is extremely important to this offense because if you can't protect Justin Herbert, then you're going to have trouble there. They're still missing Khalil Mack, who's going to be out for a few weeks to get that defense right. So right now the Chargers are for the picking. They're still atop of the AFC West, but I expect the Commanders here to have a good game and Jaden Daniels to get back into form and go back to what we were seeing last season with him in his rookie year. Chargers favored by 2.5, so we'll see. But I'm going with the Commanders. Next up, we got the Detroit Lions traveling to face the Cincinnati Bengals. The Lions at 3-1. I myself included, along with a lot of the media, we had counted the Lions dead after week 1 at Green Bay where they looked terrible. But ever since then, they've just been a juggernaut and kind of like the same old Lions we've seen like the last couple of seasons. I expect them to win handily here. I'm expecting a good game. Really good game from Jared Goff. I started him in fantasy. I picked him up. They're going to be able to put up a lot of points on this Bengals defense. And Jake Browning, this is a good one to also start maybe your Detroit defense. Browning couldn't do anything against the damn Denver defense, the Denver defense. So I think they were able to only put up 3 points. So you're going to be able to frustrate them, sack them, maybe get some turnovers. Yeah, Lions big on this one. Detroit favored by 10.5. That should tell you everything. And then we head to the Monday night game. Another interesting one. Kansas City Chiefs getting their second win of the season back-to-back. Again, it was a decimated Baltimore Ravens team, so keep it in perspective, folks. They're traveling to face the Jacksonville Jaguars at 3-1. Everyone's buying in stock on them. They may actually be good, but I will not pick them ever because of their head coach is. Liam Cohen, the betrayer of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I will not root for him ever. So just because of that, the lesser of two evils, I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are on the road, and they are favored by 3.5. Any Jaguars loss, I'll take. But the Chiefs, I want them to kind of build this little momentum thinking that they're back to form. They're close to almost getting Rashad Rice, I believe, back from suspension. They got back Xavier Worthy for this last game, so their offense is starting to ramp up a little bit, but it's also, I still think it's fool's gold. They're not the dominant Chiefs that they've been in these last couple of seasons. I still think that they're not a top, like if I'm ranking my AFC teams, I'd probably have them maybe like 3 or 4, but again, these injuries are mounting up, so just by default, they might get into the top spots, but, you know, this is Baltimore's conference to lose, in my opinion, unless, you know, the Patriots want to ramp it up and make it a fight, so we'll see, but that's NFL Week 5. Again, really good games, really good tests for both of my teams this week, and the Buccaneers and the Patriots. I'm only picking the Bucs this week to win, and I think the Patriots lose, but if they can show a good fight with this team and maybe come later in the year, they'll get their win back. But that's going to do it for Week 5. Going to be a lot of fun games. Let's take one final break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk stock watch for Evolve and NXT, both under the WWE umbrella. This is where the developmental superstars get ready, and then once they head up to Raw and SmackDown, we'll see what they do. But I'll tell you on who you should be keeping an eye on. This is the Robert Palace Podcast. We'll be right back.
The men's crown jewel championship. Cody Rhodes will face Seth freaking Rollins, who is the best of the best.
All right, welcome back to the show. WWE Crown Jewel coming to you from Perth, Australia, next Saturday, October 11th, on the all-new revamped ESPN app. It's going to be a 8 a.m. start if you're on the East Coast, a 7 a.m. start where I'm at, so I'll be up early for it. And if you're on the West Coast, you're going to have to get up at 5 in the morning to watch this bad boy. Card's shaping up to be pretty awesome. I'll have a big preview show next week running down the entire card and the stories heading into this. We're close to Survivor Series, folks. War Games is coming up, and then by the time we know it, it'll be Royal Rumble and WrestleMania season, and off we are to the races there in WWE. Sticking with WWE, let's get to our wrestling segment this week. This is a stock watch on wrestlers who I think you should be paying attention to that are on the up and coming. If some of you that just watch Raw and SmackDown in the main shows, most of the stars that come from there start off on NXT, and now they have this Evolve show that's on Tubi, where you even have just the greenest of people starting out and have them wrestle on there. Sometimes you have the veterans go down to help out, and that includes NXT, and this is more just to hone their craft, get their mic skills ready. I know NXT is on network television on the CW, but for the most part, WWE calls it a third brand, like as in Raw or SmackDown. Like they just consider it like another one, but this is really the spot before you make it to the main show, because obviously you never really see NXT superstars on the main roster events like a Crown Jewel or a WrestleMania, SummerSlam, anything like that. They have their own events for that to work out all their stuff. So a couple people that I want you to keep an eye on, just because we're starting to see the momentum turn for some of these people, and I think they're really close to being on the edge of being called up. So let's talk about a couple of these wrestlers. The first one is Ricky Saints. He was part of the AEW roster for the last couple of years, and he's been on the shelf for them for, whoever knows, whatever reason. And finally, he was let out of his contract, or his contract ran out. WWE signed him earlier this year, and he's been making he's kind of like a version of The Rock. He's a good talker on the mic. His wrestling's pretty solid. I'd say he's a better wrestler than The Rock, but where his strength is in his character and his mic skills. And last weekend in their NXT event, No Mercy, which was their pay-per-view, their premium live event, he was challenging for the NXT championship, and he beat Oba Femi who's another up-and-comer who's probably on his way up to like a Raw or SmackDown. So Ricky Saints is going to be the leader for this NXT locker room going forward in the meantime, but I think he just has huge upside, and I think he's going to be a giant star once he gets to Raw or SmackDown in the main roster. And what's going to get him there is his charisma and his mic skills. Like he can talk up there. He used to feud with CM Punk back when they were in AEW together. He's part of the Cody Rhodes like family, so he's getting brought up the right way in this business, and he has all the intangibles. And I think once he's done here with his stint as the NXT champion now, who knows how long that's going to be. I would expect this run will maybe go all the way until WrestleMania season, and then maybe he'll make his debut either before or after WrestleMania and be a part of the Raw and SmackDown roster, whichever show it may be. But he's definitely someone that you should keep an eye on. And if you're watching NXT, now is going to be a perfect time to tune in because he will be the head of it, being the NXT champion. Next person I want to talk about who's actually kind of impressed me and won me over. He's another wrestler he's been, all over the place. But he was most notably in AEW also along with Ricky Saints. He came over before he did. But I really wasn't sold on him. Like he's a good talker, but as a character, like what is he really? You got to have some type of character. Like Ricky Saints has got that suave, he does like these, electric like poses, like he's a model or something like that. He's got a character. He dresses, kind of like The Rock, with those silk shirts and stuff like that. I hate to make the comparison to The Rock, but if you're listening to this show and you're not really familiar with these names, and that's like the easiest comparison you can make. But he's so like his own character. Like once you see him, like you can see versions of The Rock in there, but he's his own person, obviously, and he's got his own style. But back to Ethan Page. He wasn't really winning me over. He's been on NXT for a while. He's been NXT champion, and now he's the NXT North American champion, which is kind of like the belt below the main championship. And he's had even a feud with Ricky Saints. And, again, he's also just been kind of there, but, ever since he's leaned in more to his Canadian roots and, he's changed the belt over to look like the Canadian flag, and he's been pairing up with Chelsea Green a little bit, on NXT. As I mentioned, like, main roster superstars go every once in a while down to NXT to help out and sometimes get in storylines. We've seen Becky Lynch go down there. Alexa Bliss was on there not too long ago. They have superstars go there from time to time to just mix it up with these people. And I think the duo of him and Chelsea Green really helped his character and help him just gain a lot more momentum. And I'm starting to see more out of him, more charisma, more character, and I think he's almost ready to go to the main roster. But I think him and Ricky Saints will probably go around the same time because they have their little feud also that you can continue on the main roster. It's pretty interesting. They didn't really go too in depth here in NXT. I mean, obviously they hate each other, but I think there's more story to tell there. But Ethan Page is also somebody to watch. And it won't be that long until I can see him on the main roster probably a little bit more before Ricky Saints, but like I can see Ethan Page popping up in the Royal Rumble, but don't expect him like on WrestleMania or anything like that. I've said this plenty of times, but I think the female division for this company, specifically WWE, has got like the absolute best future. And I mean in terms of like they may be the ones running most of the storylines. I know it's still a male-dominated industry, but the depth of this women's roster with not just the women who are on Raw and SmackDown, because that's just a talent deep in itself, but you look at what's going on in NXT and Evolve, and there's just such a depth of women on this roster, and they're given time also. So one of the things I will give Shawn Michaels a lot of credit for, and why NXT is doing this a way better job than AEW and the WWE main shows, is that there is dozens and dozens of women's segments on those NXT shows to get these women like just their shine and their time to develop. Because usually on the AEW and main WWE shows, it's stuff that's going on that's regarding the championship. And on NXT, you see like different stuff. You see like blood feuds and stuff that doesn't involve titles. And that's great. That's really progressive when it comes to the women's division because, it's easy to just throw two women into a feud and you just have that for the championship and that's that. But you want it to be like the men also, right? If you want it to be like super equal, like you got to give them their own feuds to have that don't involve championships. And that brings me to who I think has the biggest upside on this roster right now in NXT, and that is Blake Monroe. She is from also All Elite Wrestling, or that's where she had her big main, American debut. She's also worked in Stardom in Japan. She's learned that style, but she got signed by AEW, I believe, in like late 2023, and she had this incredible run there. She basically only had one giant storyline, and it was with Toni Storm, and they had this incredible feud. It was probably the best story AEW's done since like Cody and CM Punk left there. Like, it was just this long drawn out story, and she developed such a character. And I always wanted WWE to sign her even before she signed with AEW, because I had been watching her stuff in Japan, and I was like, man, this girl's going to be like a huge superstar. Like, I can just see it. She's undeniable. Like, she has everything. She has the look. She has the mic skills, and then her wrestling skills, while not the best, but they're fine tuning, and she keeps growing as a competitor. She brings that strong Japanese style, and we saw a lot of it in AEW. Obviously, it's going to be different in the WWE style, but she's like a jack of all trades. She can do everything. So she got brought into her contract, just ran out in AEW. Like, there was no bad blood, not her wanting to leave or anything like that. I think her dream was always to be in WWE. So they picked her up right away, and they wasted no time in bringing her into NXT. I think she's so good that you could have brought her up immediately into Raw and SmackDown and put her into the mix, and I think she'd fit in like a glove. But I think they just want to get her acclimated into the WWE style, which I think she's all fine with that. But I don't think she's going to be long in NXT, because the next giant superstar for the women's division, I believe, is going to be her. Now, I think it's going to be in the different way, not as a babyface good guy, but she can be like the biggest villain, like that could just match up with anybody. So, you look at the villains right now for the women's side, the heels. There's not really that much out there. They lost Naomi because she's pregnant, so she's going to be gone for a while. Raw's like heavily babyface. You have freaking Rhea Ripley and Io Sky and Stephanie Vaquer. You have Becky Lynch, of course, but she's just one, and she's like on her own level right now. But then you look at SmackDown, and it's just like there's some villains there, but not enough to be top tier. I think if you put Blake Monroe on SmackDown, she immediately jumps to the top of being like a top heel villain. So I think she's going to be like on the level of like a Triple H. Triple H was like this dominant heel forever. And I'm not saying that she has to be the champion all the time either, but she's going to be a strong force in whatever you put her in. And right now, she has not even gotten close to the NXT Women's Championship. She has been in this blood feud with Jordynne Grace, who's also another superstar coming over from TNA. And she's also another one that's probably going to be on the main roster very soon. But they've been involved in this blood feud and just this incredible feud that has nothing to do with the belt, and it's just these two women that are trying to one-up each other. And the way Blake Monroe's character is she's billed as this woman from hell, right? Like, she's this incredible beauty, like Barbie-like character, but on the inside she's vicious and very devilish and very like hardcore and willing to get dirty and bloody. Like, we saw what she did in AEW with Toni Storm. Like, this girl can bleed, and like she gets off on it. They had a steel cage weapons match last week at the No Mercy event, and it was pretty violent from a WWE standpoint. And she just fits in right in. She's not like she's not really that coward heel once it comes to the match. Now, in the lead up to it, she plays like a coward, sometimes runs away or whatever. But once she gets into fighting mode, like she's very gritty and getting down and dirty and taking table spots and chairs to the back or whatever it is. Like, she's down for it. I just think she's got it all, and she has the it factor. You can't teach that. She's had it since day one in AEW, and she's had it ever since she come to WWE, and it will not be long before she makes it to the main roster, and she will be dominating that division. I can see her main eventing a WrestleMania Night 1, something like that. I can definitely see it. The rest of the women that I'm going to talk about here on this list are all on the women's division. Lola Vice, just this incredible like MMA fighter type style, like Mexicana, Latina. She's been on the up and coming. Like she had a championship match this past weekend at the No Mercy event for the NXT Women's Championship. Didn't win, but she's already kind of getting like that kind of upper, like let's get her up to the next level kind of push. You know, we've seen her on the AAA shows, which WWE bought. It's a Lucha Libre promotion, but they're working together and they've put her on those shows, at least in their last 2 events. She's been involved. And I think she just has the look, and she could talk also as well. And I think she'll fit in very well once she hits to Raw or SmackDown. Now, what her ceiling is, I'm not sure. Is she championship level? No, but she's definitely somebody that you can count on as far as like being a reliable like person to put in a spot, and they can deliver like a good match. They can deliver a good promo. So keep an eye out on her. Lola Vice is her name. I like her a lot. And then I'm going to look at these next 2 prospects. These are girls that are usually on the Evolve show, and that's on Tubi, free every Wednesdays at 7. I think one of these girls has shown up on NXT a couple of times, and I think she has the most upside. So let's talk about her first. Her name is Kendal Gray. I mean, I don't think I've really seen anyone like her in terms of like the women's division. In terms of her speed and how she fights, like it's just so fast paced, and she's great. Like I've seen a couple of her matches, and I've just been wowed immediately. Now, what's missing from her, I think her in-ring career is going to be awesome, but we got to figure out what kind of character she's going to be and what's the hook with her, because you know, you can be a really great wrestler, but you got to have something else if you want to get to that next level. Now, do I think she could be somebody like for example, like Io Sky? You know, Io Sky is an incredible, just top tier talent when it comes to wrestling, but her character wise, you know, I know she's, you know, Japanese, but in the language barrier, but you know, for the most part, her character, it's more about the wrestling with her, but that can only get you so far, you know, and I know she's been champion too, but if she wanted to get to like a Rhea Ripley level, she would really have to improve like her mic skills. But Kendal Gray, if she can match up and get a character and get her mic skills up to like that level, she can be like a Kurt Angle style type of player, because when you watch her wrestle again, it's just like, it's in a way that you haven't really seen before. And she's just very spunky, and I can't wait to see what she does on NXT. You know, I see her on both shows, but I think, you know, you can tell that she's got a huge upside because they're starting to feature her a little bit more. I think they put her in a spot not too long ago where she was like, they put her as the one to have the match, and she was able to hang. So keep an eye out on her. Yeah, she's liked a couple of my posts on the Robert Palace podcast on Instagram, so appreciate that, Kendal. I'm a huge supporter of you, and I'm glad that I'm getting to see you every week on television. It's fun TV. The last one is Zeta Steele. Zeta the Real Deal Steele. She's been mostly on Evolve. She may have popped up on NXT maybe a time or two. They have her paired up with this kind of like frat boy group. I forgot what the group is called. Again, I pop in and out of Evolve. I watch more of the Kendal Gray stuff, but you know, I like her. She's kind of, you know, she reminds me of like she's like a mix of like a Liv Morgan, a little bit of Blake Monroe. You know, a lot of these women are kind of similar in styles and characters. You know, she's a blonde as well, but she's a really good wrestler. You know, I most of her stuff where you get to really see her really go at it is because she's still like on the indie circuit, so you'll see her at different shows, and man, she's doing like some really intense wrestling, and so I like her because of that. I know once she gets into like main WWE, like, you know, once she appears on NXT more, you're going to see more of a grounded style, and you won't see it as fast-paced and all over the place like she does on the indie circuit. But I think she's got a big upside. She's got a little bit of a character as well, but it's a little bit similar to what we're already seeing on the main roster with some of these women, like a Tiffany Stratton or even a Blake Monroe. But, maybe she can stand out and do something a little different. She's a little bit smaller in stature, kind of like not as small as Roxanne Perez, but Roxanne Perez, I think, also is just, she's got a style of her own that just doesn't look like anybody else's. So let's see what Zeta Steele does, but she is on my watch list in terms of like someone to keep an eye on. And yeah, man, there's just so many I can get into. There's also Sol Ruca, another one that's going to be eventually on Raw and SmackDown super soon. She's had a few stints on SmackDown, I believe, and she's knocked it out of the park. She's got some very innovative like moves that she does that just nobody else can pull off like her, and she does it real smooth. Her character's like a surfer girl kind of thing, but she's really great in the ring. She's the NXT North American Women's Champion, and she's also the NXT Speed Champion, so she's a double champion. They see a lot of potential in her, and I think she's also going to have a great career on the main roster. She's got to get a little bit more aggressive on the mic, though. I think she's too nice, but I'm sure that'll come with time. But the in-ring stuff she's got down. She's got a little bit of a character, surfer girl, that's fine. But yeah, this is my stock watch for who you should be paying attention to. Obviously, for the men also, I'm more invested really in the women. I think they have more of an upside. The men, I mentioned Ricky Saints and Ethan Page, both coming off of AEW. The one that's getting a lot of praise right now and also had a showing on SmackDown this past week was Javon Evans, who kind of like this generation's Jeff Hardy, someone more that the younger audience could really get into. I'm not so much into him, but then again, like I'm aging as well as a wrestling fan, so but I see a lot more upside for the women's division, so that's just a personal taste. Nothing against Javon Evans. I think he's going to be a fantastic star on the rise, but yeah, that's who you should be paying attention to on the wrestling side of things, on the younger side of things. So very, very good future here for WWE. I think they're going to be great for the next decade and a half. So looking good. All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Robert Palace Podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. I'm growing this show every week, and I see the numbers, and it's growing little by little. So I appreciate everybody that has tuned in and listened. You can listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, however you get it. It's even available on YouTube. Not in video format, but you can still listen to the audio there. I run the Instagram account, obviously, for my own podcast page at the Robert Palace Podcast. You can search that up. I'm always posting stuff on there, so I'm very active. You can DM me there if you want to shoot questions or topics or whatever, or I'm open to anything. I'll eventually get more guests on this show. I'd like to get Brandon on here, talk wrestling. We can go hours for that. Maybe for Survivor Series, I'll cook something up. But that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys next week. Peacemaker Season 2 finale, NFL Week 6. And we'll see if we get a movie review on here next week. All right? Take it easy, guys. God bless you.